Hey families, this is Mr. Roberts. I just wanted to take a minute to go through this third grade guide with you. There's a lot to know about third grade, so I just wanted to take a minute to walk through this with you. Make sure you've got your copy of your third grade guide there so that you can kind of flip through as we're going along. If you think of any questions you want to ask, just jot it down as we're going through, and then you can certainly message me and ask me about that. If your student is in another class, this video will still pertain to you. A couple things may be just a tad bit different, but most of it will be the same. So, welcome to third grade. We're so glad you're here. I'm just going to start going through this. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, if your child's in a different class, that page will be different. Let's jump over to the daily schedule page. I want to point out this part at the top up here. That says students should report to the old gym before school. If you're eating breakfast, they'll go to the cafeteria and then to the old gym. Make sure that your students are eating breakfast by 7:30. So if they're going to eat breakfast, try to make sure they're here by 7:30 because they just don't really have time to eat if they're here later than that. They certainly can, but our goal is to make sure they're here by 7:30 for sure. If you're getting here around 7:40, they can just come on to the classroom because that's where we'll be, and then make sure that you're here by 7:45 because anytime after that's considered tardy. So if you look at our schedule, we start right away. There's no wasted time. So you want to make sure that your student's here on time. We're starting at 7:42 to 10:43 for ELA. As soon as we finish ELA, we go to PE or music. You can look at that schedule there. My class is split, so half of them go on Wednesday, half go on Thursday. That's what half music means. Half the class goes on Wednesday, half goes on Thursday. So you can look at that schedule there. We come back and we do math for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes until lunchtime. Then we go to lunch from 11:58 to 12:23. We come back, we do math, and then we do science and social studies. Personally, and again, if your student's in another class, this may be a little different. This is not how our schedule really looks. This is what's on paper, but we really do math a lot longer than what's listed, and we spend a lot less time doing science and social studies than what's listed here. It's just kind of the way the ball bounces in third grade. And then we go to break at 2:10. We leave there about 2:32ish to dismiss, and then we dismiss. So we go to dismissal at 2:36, and then students are formally dismissed at 2:40. So if your student's a car rider, they won't actually start going out to car line until 2:40. All right, over to the next page, we have Parent Square. Really all there is to know about this is that make sure you have the Parent Square app. Every bit of communication you receive from your child's teacher will come from here. If you need to message them, you can do that on here. Personally, for my class, I use the Parent Square calendar. So if you go to the events tab at the bottom, you'll see our class events there. So make sure that you check that frequently. Again, if your child's in one of the other classes, that may be a little bit different. But make sure that you frequently check Parent Square. That's where every bit of communication will be. Over to FAST. This is the biggie for third grade. So the FAST is the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking, so it's our state assessment, and third grade is the year that this really looks different than any other grade. So in third grade, it is a mandatory retention year, which means if they do not pass the FAST test, then they have to retain in third grade. They have to do another year of third grade. So it's a very big year. Third grade and 10th grade are the only grades that are this way. And third grade counts double on our school score as well. So like the tests that our third graders take, they count twice toward our school grade of what everything else does. So it's a very important test. It's very heavily weighted. It's nothing to fret about, but it is something to just keep in the back of your mind as we're progressing through this year. If your student is not making, the progress that we'd like to see them make, then you just want to consider this. We need to make sure that we're getting where we need to be getting. So in K2 they take the STAR test, and in third grade it jumps over to its own test. Like it's the state website. It's not the STAR test anymore. We do take the STAR test, but STAR is not what counts as our state test. So FAST is set up for levels 1 to 5. So with a 1 being the lowest score you can make and a 5 being the highest. So students have to make a level 3 or above to promote to fourth grade. So a level 3 or above is proficient. Your student can promote with a 2 as well. So technically a 2 or above, but a level 2 is not considered proficient. I know that sounds complicated. It really doesn't make sense, but you have to have a 2 or above to promote a level 3 is technically proficient. And I believe our district is making a different policy this year with the level 2. It's my understanding that now if they do make a level 2, they can still promote, but they have to go to summer school first. So that's my understanding. I'll keep you updated about that. But our goal is for students to at least make a level 3 on ELA and math. The mandatory retention is only for ELA, not for math, but math is still just as important. So if they do not meet that level 3 on the last time we take that test, there are some things they can do to get to promote either way. One of those is the already diagnostic. They have to make the 50th percentile or higher. They can also take the STAR test and make the 50th percentile or higher. If they go to summer school, they'll take SAT-10. That's the 45th percentile or higher. But we won't worry about all that. We're going to hope that they all pass, and then we'll cross that bridge when we get there if we have to. So third grade is very heavy, and it's nothing to be scared of. But it does mean that we want to do our best. I look at it as, I hold my students to a very high standard. I hold myself to a very high standard. I'm teaching, we're learning all day, every day. And my opinion on it is I don't teach to a test, but I believe that, as long as we are learning every day, that's going to transpire to a good test score. So my goal is really not to prepare students for testing. It's to prepare students for academic and life success, and then that's going to show on the test, if that makes sense. So it is very heavy, but we don't want to stress our students out because at the end of the day, it is just a test. So certainly don't let that drag you down. That's not what we want to weigh our year down. Moving on to grades. Grades are in Focus. If you don't have a Focus account, make sure that you get that. Here's the grading scale if you want to look at that. Grades are figured each quarter or every 9 weeks. Test grades count double what daily grades count. I'll go through what we take for grades in just a minute. The school recognizes honor roll as either A honor roll or AB honor roll. Make sure you check the Focus app frequently. I typically put grades in usually same day. Sometimes it takes me a little longer to get things graded, but you want to definitely make sure that you keep a watch on your students' grades. Because again, our district has kind of in the past had the policy where if students made the proficient score on FAST, they were going to promote regardless of what their grades are. Well, now they're adding in a component to where students must also meet the grade requirement. So even if your student passes FAST, they could still have to go to summer school if their grades aren't up to par, if their grades aren't passing. So just something to think about. Next page is attendance. Attendance is crucial. I won't talk about this a whole lot, but just being on time and making sure that your student is here every day. We hit the ground running every day, so if your student is tardy, they're going to be missing instruction. It's just not a good way to start off the day. So we want to make sure that they're on time and that they're here as frequently as they can be, because, we truly learn all day, every day. So, if your child is not here, then they're missing, you might as well say, a solid 5.5 hours of instruction. So think about that's 5.5 hours of learning they missed just from one day. So we understand that things happen and things come up and there are times that you just have to miss. But if it can be avoided, we want to make sure that we're here. Moving on to reading. Our core reading curriculum is SAVIS, My View Literacy. So I wanted to just kind of talk with you about where our reading comes from every week and what it looks like. So starting with phonics, phonics is our spelling skill for the week. So we do have a list of 15 spelling words each week. We test on those each Friday. So you want to make sure that you are practicing those. Attached to the homework page will be like a little practice page. Students can use to practice those. That counts for a daily grade, so that's very important. Our comprehension skill is our reading skill for the week. We take a reading test each Friday that counts as a test grade. So whatever reading skill we're working on for the week, that's what the test is. Actually, let me go ahead and show you that real quick. This is an example of what our test looks like each week. Let me go back to the top. So it starts off with a passage, like this is for the very first one. It starts off with a passage and then 4 questions, 4 multiple choice questions, and a written response. Then we have a vocabulary page. You'll see these vocabulary words on our homework sheet in just a minute. That's where these come into play. So 4 vocabulary questions, and then Another one, this one uses a dictionary entry, but they're not all that way. Then we get over to word study. This is our phonics skill for the week. So, like all of our phonics skills for the very first week follow the VCCV pattern: vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel. So this is how they assess spelling on our weekly assessment. Next, we have another reading passage, and then 4 questions that follow it, 3 multiple choice, and then a written response. We usually take off this last written response. So that gives us a total of 19 questions. I typically rate it out of 20, just to give them a little bit of leeway, but yeah, so that's what our reading test looks like each week. And they get more complicated as we go, of course, so they're not easy, but they're not supposed to be. The point is to be rigorous, to be challenging, so that's what those look like. Then grammar. So we have a grammar skill each week, and we assess that through a daily grade on Friday. That grammar daily grade also encompasses morphology. Morphology is just how the English language is written, how words are created. So that includes prefixes, suffixes, and Greek and Latin roots. So we do have a set of those each week as well on the homework page. I'll get there in just a second. So we do assess those as well. That'll make more sense when I show that. Moving on to Accelerated Reader, we do use AR. AR is really just where they're able to go to the library. They can check out books. They can check out 2 at a time. And then they're able to go online and take tests and earn points for reading those books. So one thing that I highlighted here is that in 3rd grade, it is crucial that students make the transition to reading chapter books. There's nothing wrong with picture books, but at this age, it's really a transitional age. We really should be moving away from so many picture books, and reading more chapter books. That's very important. So my advice to students is typically to check out 1 chapter book each week and 1 picture book. You might want to read the picture book every night, and then read 1 chapter of your chapter book every night until you finish it. Then you can return the picture book and get another one each night. It's up to students. I'm not strict about that. I typically do a chapter book challenge. We'll start that a little later in the year. For students who do read a chapter book every week. It really just builds fluency. It builds stamina. Students see a lot of character development in chapter books that you just don't get out of a lot of picture books. So that is very important. You can download the Renaissance app, the Renaissance Home Connect app, and tie it to your child's account. That will show you every AR test they take. You can log on and view their STAR results on there as well. So that's a good app to have. Moving on to math, our math curriculum is Big Ideas. We have 14 math chapters, so that means we take 14 tests. Sometimes we take a mid-chapter test too, just to give us some more test grades. As far as math practice, your student will bring home a practice packet at the beginning of every chapter. So my advice to students is to complete 1 page per day. So they're broken up by chapter and lesson. So like 1.1 means chapter 1, lesson 1. So we typically do 1 lesson a day. So like Monday would be 1.1, Tuesday would be 1.2, Wednesday would be 1.3, and so on. That's not always the case. Sometimes we skip lessons. Sometimes we double up and do 2 in a day. But a standard week is 1 lesson after the next. So if your student is completing 1 of those pages each day, then they're going to have their math practice done. And I'll show you what that looks like. So for each math lesson, your student will bring home a reteach page. So like this is 1.1. You'll see at the top, it just kind of reteaches the lesson. And then at the bottom, it has 2 practice problems. So that's it. That's all of their math homework. So essentially 2 problems a day. On the back, there is an enrichment and extension. So if you would like your child to have more practice there, you can flip over to the back of that, and that'll give them some more practice for sure. But as long as they're doing at least these front 2 problems, it's just a good way to double check behind and make sure that they understood what we were doing in math that day. So I like for students to return this on test day so that I can check it. I usually give them some sort of prize for bringing it back completed. But again, your child's teacher may do something a little different. So as long as they're doing this reteach page, they're going to be caught up with their practice in math. There's no set day of the week for math tests. Like we can't just say, oh, we're going to test every Friday in math. Every chapter is a different length, and it just depends on each group as well. There are some times that, one class may need an extra day on something when the other just doesn't. So each math test doesn't really have a specific test day, but we'll be sure to let you know ahead of time when it is going to be. And again, if you go back and look at the reteach pages, however many lessons there are, like if there are 7 lessons, then that typically means we'll be through with the chapter in 7 days. We'll have 1 day for a review, and then we'll test the next day. So you can usually kind of figure it out that way. Sorry. This at the bottom is really important. Multiplication is a huge skill in 3rd grade. We spend really the beginning of the school year until January doing really nothing but multiplication and division. So practicing those facts at home are really important. As we get later on in the year, you'll get more practice, more like hard copy paper practice for your student, but for the beginning of the year, just calling them out, reciting them is a very good way to practice. So that's very important to be doing. Behavior, I won't hit on that too much because that kind of goes by teacher, but these are the 5 pillars that I have in my classroom, and it's kind of across the board. So follow directions quickly. Use your hand signals. I use hand signals in my classroom, so students will know what that is. Respect our school and everyone in it, and that's a biggie. That just means we're taking care of our school and we're taking care of the people in it. So that means that we're treating people the way that we should be treating them. We're treating our school the way that we should be treating it, not making messes, keeping things tidy. That encompasses a lot, really, if you're respecting our school and everyone in it. The next one is give your best effort in everything you do. That's so important. I mean, that kind of explains itself. To me, it's so important to just give your best effort in everything you do. And the last one is make our team stronger. So that just means that you're being a team player. You're doing what I ask you to do. You're really just being a part of our team. All right, next is iReady. iReady is a computer program that is adaptable. So if your student has been on our campus before, then they've done iReady. We must spend a certain amount of time on iReady each week so they get personalized lessons. There's also a diagnostic component where students can test. So I won't harp on iReady a whole lot, but you can read that if you would like. Next we have ice cream. Our school sells ice cream each Friday for $1. Please send $1 with your student each Friday if you would like them to receive ice cream. That can be revoked due to poor behavior, which very rarely happens, but if behavior is severe enough, then we absolutely, that may be a consequence. So make sure that you try to remember to send $1 each Friday. I try to put it on Parent Square with a reminder so that you get a reminder each Thursday, because I know life is crazy and you forget. But do try to remember that. That helps our school out. It's a good little reward for students, so that's a good thing there. So just kind of a little overview of what we have talked about. These are the things that are expected each night: to practice spelling words, practice vocabulary words, practice multiplication facts, read AR, and that reteach math packet. I understand that your time at home is valuable. Students spend a lot of time at school. And I don't want them going home and doing just loads of homework. I never expect that. But it is important that your students are practicing these skills outside of school, as little or as much as you feel like they need to. If you practice spelling words Monday night and they've got them, well then, sit them down until Thursday and wait until Thursday to practice them again. If your student is just really strong in math and you don't feel like you need to do the enrichment and extension part of the math practice, then don't do it. That's really just for you. My opinion on it is I would rather send extra so that parents have options than to not send anything and you just feel like you don't have any options if your student does need that practice. So I definitely want you to have practice. Is all of it necessarily required? No. Spelling, vocabulary, AR, those are really, I would say, a requirement. The math packet we really stress, but again, if you run out of time, you just do. And then practicing multiplication facts is really important as well. Make sure your student's on time and present as much as possible. Check your students' folder often. I'm going to have a sign-in sheet in there in your child's folder. So make sure that you're initialing that each night, just so that we have an accountability piece to make sure that you're checking folders, because that is important. Discuss your students' work quality and celebrate successes. That's so important. We definitely want to celebrate their successes. Look at their graded papers. Talk about what they miss. We do that in the classroom as much as we can, but definitely do that at home as well. Check Parent Square frequently. Message me anytime you need to. Real quick, let's talk about transportation changes while I'm on that. If student is requiring a transportation change, please make sure that that goes through the office. I don't mind if you message me as well, but it needs to go through the office first, so that they have a record of it. If I'm out that day, or if your child's teacher is out, they may not get the message, before time for dismissal. So make sure that any transportation changes go through the office before you send it on Parent Square. If you want to send it on Parent Square too, that's great, but make sure that it goes through the office. So while I'm here, the only other thing I haven't shown you yet is our homework page. This is what this looks like every week. So you'll see our 15 spelling words over here. 3 of them are bonus words. I just realized they're not labeled on here, but the last 3 are always bonus words. So your child's teacher may do it a little bit different, but I grade it out of 12, and then I give an extra point for each one of these that are spelled correctly. So it tells you what our phonics skill is each week. I also send home a video that your student can use to practice their spelling words with. So if you're just like, I don't have time to call them out to you, let them do that video if nothing else. That's very important. This will be updated before you get it, but our spelling and vocab test will be on Friday, and our weekly assessment will be on Friday as well. These are our Greek and Latin roots. This was the morphology part I was telling you about earlier, that will be on our grammar page. There's a large portion of the English language that are made up of Greek and Latin roots or prefixes and suffixes, so we hit those really heavily. So you can see, like, aqua means water, ad is to hear, anti is against, ant means in front of. So we practice those words in context, but they will be quizzed on these on that grammar daily grade every week. This is our comprehension skill. So we're really looking at plot and setting the first week. This tells you our grammar skill. We're looking at simple sentences. Down here, these are our vocabulary words that are assessed. So really, the best way to practice these is just calling them out. What does the word fierce mean? Can you use it in a sentence? What is a synonym for fierce? What's another word that means close to fierce? Could it be someone who is aggressive? What's an antonym? What's the opposite of fierce? Well, the opposite of being fierce would be being friendly, right? So just asking your student synonyms, antonyms. Can you use it in a sentence? Can you tell me the definition? Those are great ways to practice vocabulary. On the back of that homework page is the math side. So it tells you kind of what facts we're working on right now. You can see those. It usually gives you some little tips for those facts. Not every set has tips, but the ones that do. And then you have some math vocabulary words. These are not assessed. I've had a couple parents ask me about that before. We don't take like a math vocabulary test like we do for ELA, but these are words that we'll be using a lot throughout the chapter. So having an understanding of these words will really help them with the concepts that we're learning. There is no like math vocabulary quiz or test, but your student could see these on like the chapter test, and it will just help them understand the skills that we are learning. So that's about it. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Reach out to myself, or if your child's in a different class, reach out to your child's teacher if you have any questions. Read back through this third grade guide. There are a couple extra pages that I didn't go over. There's a transportation page, and a couple other things that you may need to look at to figure out what bus your child's going to be on if your child's riding the bus, and those sorts of things. But thank you for taking the time to listen to this. We look forward to a wonderful year.